I know you guys are clapping because you think I can get you free tickets. I have no free Kings tickets to give. So good afternoon. We've heard the state of the port. I've learned so much more about rail than I would have ever imagined. We've heard the state of the Kings, and now we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the state of our great city. So with that, I say good afternoon to you all, to our honored guests, to the city council members, Vice Mayor Holman and Councilmember Andrade, Councilmember Wright, Councilmember Loftus, Councilmember Fugazi, and Councilmember Lenz, to our city manager, our police chief, and all city staff, city attorney, and city clerk, to other elected officials present, and you all, good afternoon. I never get tired of this story, but literally 11 years ago, I went to a city council meeting. My hair was only a little bit longer than it is now. And I asked Mayor Chavez for free tickets to the State of the City lunch. And he happily obliged. And it's not lost on me that just 10 years later, every year, at least for the next 4 years, I have the awesome privilege and opportunity to give that speech. And for that, Stockton, I say thank you. In 2018, it's a great year to be a Stocktonian. And we definitely have a lot to be proud of. I know I'm personally proud of the fact that we were once bankrupt, but now are named as one of the most fiscally healthy cities, not just in this state, but in this nation. I'm warning, there's a lot to be proud of, so we should sparse out the claps so we can get through this speech. I'm proud of the fact, thanks to the business owners and the taxpayers, that we're now investing in our children and youth through the passage of Measure M. I am proud of the fact that crime last year was at a 17-year low, and this year we're 5% below that. I am proud of the fact that we've increased our spending on homelessness and have partnered with the county, thanks in part to the leadership of Supervisor Miller and convening the countywide homelessness task force to really address this pressing issue for our community. I'm proud that the city is going to partner with Caltrans and employ some homeless individuals and help them work and make our city clean and safe. I'm proud of the community members who are working with the county to launch the Ready to Work program. I am proud of the fact that we have attracted major employers like Amazon, adding over 1,000 jobs, and this year I've done over 3 million square feet of industrial space. I am proud of the fact that permits for development have increased nearly 25% from a value of $300 million to $411 million. I am proud that we moved up in the ranks for overall health of our residents, reducing the time Stocktonians spend in emergency rooms, and increasing the number of people who routinely seek medical care. I'm proud that we remain committed to our values. I'm proud of San Joaquin RTD for being the first bus line in this country to pledge to go all electric by 2025. I'm proud of the fact that we were one of a handful of cities selected for a transformative climate community grant, giving us $170,000 to work with our community and position ourselves to benefit from this new green economy. I'm proud of this past year, despite attacks from the federal government, our council and our community have stayed strong in support of our immigrant community. I say this all the time and I'll say it again. Stockton is a city of immigrants. 30% of our population was born somewhere else, and another 30%, it's their parents or their lovers. So any attack on immigrants, anytime immigrants feel less safe, it makes our city less safe, and I'm proud of this council and our police department for being bold and apologetic about the fact that we are a community of immigrants, and diversity is one of our strengths. I am proud of the fact that we are adding capacity to our violence prevention efforts by implementing and rolling out the Advanced Peace program this summer. I am proud of the fact that we have filled 5,600 potholes and picked up over 6 tons of trash. Clap for that. You guys complain about trash all the time. I am proud of the fact that we're the first city in this nation to launch a guaranteed income demonstration. I am proud of the fact that we're investing in our young people, the Stockton Scholars. And yes, I'm proud that last year, due in part to these efforts and many of those that you're leading, that we were named an All-American City again. And this year, next month, we're going back as a finalist with the possibility of winning back-to-back. Stockton, yes, we have accomplished a lot. We have a lot of work to do, but I want to start this speech in saying the myriad of reasons why I'm proud to be Stocktonian and proud to be your mayor, because we know far too well the troubles of our not-so-distant past. But today, Stockton is being reinvented into a community of possibility. People are starting to look at Stockton not just for our problems, but for our solutions. And for that, we should all be proud. But what I'm most proud of is everyday Stocktonians that deserve the real credit for where we are today. So I thank you, Stockton. I thank you, the parents that work to raise our children, the residents that continually vote to increase funding for public safety and for parks and libraries. I'd say thank you to the business owners whose success is our success, the products you sell, the customers you serve, all help our city be one that's business friendly. Thank you to all the workers and laborers that make our city function and run. Thank you to the faith leaders, the clergy leaders, community groups that are working every day to make this city safer, more just, and more equitable. And I could go on forever, but let me end by saying thank you so much to our city staff and employees, to our police fires and our firefighters, and to all our civil servants. I said it last year, and I'll say it again. You guys could have given up when the going got tough. You could have left for greener pastures, but you stayed, and you sacrificed. And for that, I say thank you. And it's because of all of you that the state of the city is stronger than it was last year and stronger than it's been by a variety of indicators of any time in recent history. And a year ago, I stood before you and I asked the question, I said, why not Stockton? Why couldn't Stockton be a city leading the way in innovation and ideas? Why couldn't Stockton be a city that prioritized and invested in our youth? Why couldn't we be a launch pad for groundbreaking ideas? And if I told you last year that we would have begun to develop answers to those questions, many of you would have said, Mayor Tubbs, it's too ambitious. Mayor Tubbs, it's not possible. And I'm here to tell you today very clearly, I reject that notion. I reject the notion that it's not possible for Stockton to be a safe city. I reject the notion that it's not possible for Stockton to be an innovative city. I reject the notion that Stockton cannot innovate and iterate over a failing status quo, and I'll continue to be unapologetic in saying so. In this past year, we've made great strides. Stockton is now being recognized nationally and internationally for the work not just one person is doing, but the work we're all doing together. This spirit of reinvention has brought visits from key leaders like U.S. Senator Kamala Harris, State Attorney General Xavier Becerra, Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, State Treasurer John Chang, and led us to convene the first ever San Joaquin Valley Leadership Conference and a tour with over 10 federal agencies to come and see what's going on in Stockton and how could they be a part. To that end, this summer, we're hosting 40 foundations in Stockton for a day to spend time thinking and strategizing what can they do to partner with us in all the work that we're already doing. So yes, this year went by fast, and it's hard to believe the amount of work we accomplished in just 12 short months. The most important thing I did last year, though, was get married. So I want to... So to my wife, Anna, who is here today, I love you. Thank you for the work you're doing with our children and with women and everything you do to advance a community that's more safe, more just, and more equitable. Just last month, my wife, Councilmember Loftus and Lenz, convened with a bunch of other community leaders to launch a report on the status of women in Stockton. The report revealed that our mothers, our daughters, our sisters are doing worse on most outcomes than other women in every part of the state, nation, and county. A couple statistics stood out particularly. Number one, more women in Stockton live below the poverty level than women in this county, than women in the state of California, and women in the United States, 27%. That number is important because 33% of all of our families are headed by single mothers, meaning our next generation is being raised with a lot of women who are trapped in poverty. The second stat that stood out was that approximately 13% of women in Stockton are unemployed, which is nearly double the national female unemployment rate of 7%. The third thing that was shocking was that emergency calls for violence against women, domestic violence, rape, assault, have consistently, meaning for a long time, been higher in Stockton than in California or in San Joaquin County. So the data is troubling, but it's also our greatest asset as we move forward and craft policies that are tailored to the unique needs of women. This data is an impetus. It's a call to action, because women are some of our greatest assets as our community, and research tells us that gender equality is an instrument in development. We know that investments in women across the world have effects far beyond the individual. A woman multiplies the impact of an investment made in her future by extending benefits to those around her, creating a better life for her and her family. It's simple. When we invest in women, we invest in Stockton. And to that end, my office will spend the next year looking and analyzing the data and launching some initiative, particular and specific in focus and scope, to advance the cause of women in our community. But it's not just with the women in our community that we have work to do. Today, in Stockton, 1 in 4 Stocktonians live in poverty. Today, in Stockton, half of our jobs pay minimum wage. Today, in Stockton, we are still the largest metropolitan area in this state and the second largest in this nation without one public institution of higher learning. So yes, there's a lot to be proud of, but there's also a lot more work to be done. So if last year was about planning and potential, this year, 2018, is about production and implementation. Because our city is primed with many opportunities. The groundwork has been laid by the sacrifices from the past, and now it's up to us to complete the work and continue to make our own sacrifices. The question, Stockton, is, are we ready to act? I believe anything is possible in Stockton, and I've seen the odds Stockton's face to get even to where we are today. The people of this city have consistently shown that nothing is impossible if we put our minds together and do it together. One of my favorite stories from my time on City Council was the work we did on the 8th and Airport Way. Something that people told us was impossible. Closing new Grand Save liquor store, one that was notorious for criminal activity. Police were called nearly 200 times in a one-year period, and I've shared with many of you how that community was determined to organize, to come together, and figure out how to fix it. So the idea 5 years ago that we could close down a problem liquor store, that Mr. Duffy would invest and bring a financial credit union to that community, that we would clean up a nearby park, establish a health clinic, that in an area that for decades had been non-neglected, seemed impossible. But guess what, Stockton? We did it. When the community comes together, impossible takes a back seat to the possible. Suddenly, the challenges for decades recede. Because to quote Dr. King, change doesn't come in on the wheels of inevitability, but it comes in through continuous struggle, organization, and work. So it'll take collaboration, trust, teamwork, and an understanding that in many respects, the status quo is not working and must change. I'll say it again. The status quo in many respects is not working and it must change. And this type of model, this model of mutual respect and trust, one of collective impact and an understanding that the whole is greater than our parts, that's what I'm describing when I say the term reinvent Stockton. Our challenges are big, but they are dwarfed by our collective capacity. Because Stockton, when we are focused, when we're aligned, and we have strategic vision and goals, we can accomplish anything to position our city well for the future. And nowhere is this partnership more important than in public safety. In a time where many communities are facing challenges between the law enforcement and the community they have sworn to serve, I'm glad that here in Stockton, although we're not perfect, we strive to build bridges, understanding, and communication between our law enforcement and our public. I tell people all the time that Stockton has the most forward-thinking police chief in this nation, Chief Eric Jones. And he is committed to building a better police force. Our police department not only does procedural justice and implicit bias training, but they go around the nation training other departments on implicit bias and procedural justice. And the Officer of the Year this year, Officer Robert Johnson, really illustrates a lot of points and principles of our police department. Officer Johnson has worked in our police department for 21 years. He's an officer that gives back regularly to the community and mentors other officers. And in September, Officer Johnson was called for a call that I'm sure he'll remember for quite some time. The call took place a few blocks away from Shipley Park. The officer found a battered 77-year-old man, a victim of an armed robbery. The elderly man was riding his bike, which he used to sell ice cream. Meanwhile, a younger individual attacked this older man, pushed him off his bike, took his money, and robbed him at gunpoint. And after being robbed, this gentleman was scared to communicate with our officers because he was not an American citizen. But when Officer Johnson heard the details of what had taken place, he knew the right thing to do. He bought some ice cream and told the man to keep the change. At the end, the ice cream man had more money than he had lost. But more importantly, Officer Johnson was able to build the trust and respect of that man and was able to get him to corroborate to help make our community safer. Officer Johnson is just one of several fine examples of the men and women who serve our public as public safety officers, and he also illustrates a fundamental value of our community, that everyone in Stockton matters, and that we are safer and better when everyone in our community participates. And to that end, that's why I'm proud our department has not and will not waver on our simple policy, that we will not stop, detain, or question anyone solely because of suspected immigration status. At one point, Stockton had one of the most understaffed police departments in this country. But today, we have more officers than we've ever had at 457, thanks in large part to Measure A and B and then taxpayers stepping up time and time again to support improving our city. So thank you. This year, overall, violent crime is down, along with property crime and homicides. In fact, our non-fatal shootings are down 40%. Despite these trends, however, we refuse to rest on our laurels, and we must continue to be at or below the state average. Because as we learned after that horrific shooting on Mother's Day, we still have much work to do. So today, we remember Gina Zong, Joe Lord, and Kayleen Lord, and vow to continue our efforts to make Stockton the safe community that we all deserve. And I'm so proud of this council because last year we heard that despite overall crime going down, homicides have went up. And instead of pointing fingers, instead of laying blame, we sprung into action. 1 month, literally after the December homicide number was released, we had a robust discussion about bringing a strategy to complement our existing ceasefire and other violence prevention efforts. And the council, on a 6-1 vote, decided to bring in a program called Advanced Peace, one that doesn't supplant, but complements our existing law enforcement strategy by focusing, targeting, and building relationship with those who are most likely to be victims or perpetrators of violent crime. But the icing on top was that the city didn't even have to pay for the strategy to get safer. That foundations, philanthropists, and private dollars stepped up and said, you know what, Mayor Tubbs, I believe Stockton can be a safe city, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I say that the timeline, again, 1 month after a meeting, because, and city staff will tell you, I'm one of the most impatient people you'll ever meet. And I always complain about how government moves so slow. But in this instant, we sprung into action and moved quickly. And I think that goes to show you how the city is improving. That we're looking at the needs of our community, we're setting priorities, and then we're moving quickly and aggressively to address them. In addition to Advanced Peace, we also have a program called Ceasefire. And Ceasefire is a program that we've been using since 2012 that's a partnership-based approach to reducing gun violence. And I love the Ceasefire program because it teaches us the power of relationships and the fact that no investment is too small. So I'm gonna give you a little factoid. Did you know every time there's a homicide in our community, it costs us between systems $400,000? Every time there's a shooting, it costs us a homicide $400,000. Every time. Yet some will say we should give up on individuals who may be caught in life's of crime. Some may say we're wasting our time. Some would say it's not a good use of taxpayer dollars. But the narrative is simple. We are already paying. We're paying in dollars. We're paying in trauma. We're paying in kids going to sleep listening to gunshots at night. We've been paying for the past 30 years. So I think now it's time to make smarter investments and invest in the individuals who are most likely to be driving this violent crime. So there's a young man that illustrates sort of this idea of the fact that we can't give up on anyone in our community. His name is Brad. Brad lived most of his life in a single-parent home in some of the toughest areas in North Stockton. He looked up to his older siblings and friends from the community, and many of those guys were into stealing, robbing, drug dealing, gangbanging. And without proper community interventions, it was only a matter of time before Brad would follow the path of his older family members and friends. So as a teenager, he started off with petty thefts. But as the years went by, he eventually worked his way to armed robberies. And because he was never caught, he never faced the consequences for his actions. Brad still ended up graduating from high school, but that summer he was arrested for an armed robbery, and his daughter was born while he was in prison. When he was released, he was ready to start over. However, he was very concerned. He realized the challenges he had in going back into the same environment that caused the lifestyle he had entered into. And besides going back to the same environment, Brad had many other obstacles: finding employment, gaining visitation and custody rights, finding a place to live. When he was first released, he was thankful to have his mother by his side to support his goal of changing his lifestyle. And in 2013, Brad attended his first Ceasefire call-in hosted by our Office of Violence Prevention. There, he ran into a peacekeeper, Stanley Thomas, and Brad had met Stan during his football days. After hearing the Ceasefire message and speaking with Stan, Brad thought the Peacekeeper program would be able to assist him with leaving his old ways behind. Shortly thereafter, Brad lost his two older brothers to gang violence. But rather than revert to his old ways, Brad tried his hardest to honor his brother by working towards his dreams of being a good father, husband, son, and chasing his dream of getting a career in music. In 2016, Brad was able to find a full-time job to provide opportunities for him and his family. And now Brad is off parole, married with 4 children. You've been busy, Brad, working full-time, and decided he wanted to start giving back to his community. But then Brad had a question. He said, what can I do to do more for the community? So he became part of our Violence Prevention Leadership Council. And now Brad wants to pursue a career as a peacekeeper with the Office of Violence Prevention. And I share Brad's story in depth today because his story is familiar, too familiar, for far too many young people in our focus areas throughout our city. His story also illustrates what's possible when we don't give up on people, when we don't throw people away, and also illustrates how difficult it is to break cycles of crime and poverty. And it's not possible to do without relationships, support, intervention, and help. So Brad, to me, you represent the hope I have for many in this city. You are an example of the change that can occur only and only if we as a city are willing to extend a hand up, invest in our people, and believe in second chances. You make me proud to take risks and believing that Stockton can be a safer city, and that a key to that safety is investing in the communities and in the young men most impacted by the crime. So Brad, thank you. And over the past several years, we've also developed neighborhood betterment teams led by our police department to work on the issues in neighborhoods like the one Brad grew up in. These communities, Kentfield, Midtown, Magnolia, Gleason Park, Fox Creek, and North Manchester have needs, however, that go far beyond the police department. These communities need jobs. These communities need opportunity. These communities need grocery stores. These communities are oftentimes not just high in crime, but high in everything negative and low in everything positive. So in the coming years, I challenge myself, the city council, city staff, and the community to come up with a strategy for these 6 focus areas, especially since these areas have been long neglected and have been focus areas and areas with high crime rates for at least the last 30 years. Crime is a symptom of lack of opportunity found in these communities, and we must do something more than expect Eric Jones and the 457 officers to be the answer to every community ill facing those communities. Additionally, at our budget meeting yesterday, the council called for a proposal to expand ShotSpotter gun detection technology to all the focus areas to help stabilize and get them safer as we as a community advance a strategy to bring them up to other communities in our city. Furthermore, over the past 4 to 5 years, a group of community partners have been working in the South Stockton area, and they've seen significant progress. Now they're extending to the Midtown Magnolia area, and we must extend our focus to the other areas in the city to create communities of opportunities so Brad's kids, don't have to go through what he did. So again, crime's an issue in our community. We have more officers than we've ever had before, but we could have 1,000 officers and 2,000 officers, but if we don't couple those officers with opportunity, we will continue to struggle with cyclical issues of generational poverty and violence in this city. So until we get serious, we roll up our sleeves, we spend the time and the dollars to figure out a strategy, year after year after year after year, we'll be having the same conversation. In Stockton, I think it's time we turn the page. So as I mentioned before, the long-term answer to crime and poverty is opportunity, and the short-term answer for opportunity and crime is education. To reinvent Stockton, we have to build a continuum of supports that support our young people from cradle to career. It's great to hear these stories like those of Brad, but we also must do more to help those students before they ever start off on the wrong track. Our children are our most precious resource. We must invest in them and provide support needed for them all to succeed. Did you know that in all 4 of our school districts, over 60% of students who graduate don't meet the requirements to even apply for a UC or a CSU? Yes, throughout our city, in Lodi Unified School District, Lincoln Unified School District, Manteca Unified School District, and Stockton Unified School District, the vast majority of our students can't even apply to a CSU Stockton if it was going to be built here today. And that goes to explain why, according to the Brookings Institute, of the top 100 metro areas in this country, we are 99 in college completion, with only 17% of all of our residents possessing a bachelor's degree or higher. In Stockton, I'll be frank, we have to do better, because we all win when all of our children do better. So to that end, in January, in conjunction with the Reinvent Stockton Foundation, we launched the Stockton Scholars Initiative, an ambitious effort that seeks to triple the numbers of students who graduate college and career ready in our city. With an initial $20 million donation, for the vast majority of students, starting next year in Stockton Unified, CSU tuition will be essentially free. And we seek to send a clearer message to the city that we have high expectations, high standards, but to our young people, if you do everything we say, you go to school, you do your homework, you stay out of trouble, when you graduate, tuition and fees won't be a barrier for you pursuing your higher education at a 4-year school, at a 2-year school, or even at a trade school. Because I truly believe that our children, our students are definitely worthy of investment. So I've done the initial work. I've done the initial work. We have $20 million, so for a decade, every kid who graduates from Stockton Unified is guaranteed a scholarship. But to reach the whole city, all 4 school districts, and to do that in perpetuity, it's going to cost $100 million. So I raised the first 20 without any of your help. But to get to 100, I'm going to need each and every one of us to dig deep and think about if we really value our children, if we really want to see economic development, if we really think that all our children are smart and talented and just need the resources and opportunities, then we have to find a way to grow the pot so that kids in every school district can benefit from the Stockton Scholars gift. It was students like Mercedes Oliver, one of this year's winners, that I have in mind when I'm talking about the great potential our students in our city have. She wrote, "A higher education gives me the opportunity my parents never had. Despite financial difficulties I faced, I want to go to college to better myself and demonstrate how I can make a difference in the world. I can demonstrate to others that the environment I grew up in does not affect my chances of success. My career goal is to improve the lives of others, especially children." And it was principals like Brian Biederman and people like Stockton Dev Hassan Ali I had in mind when we launched the Principals Challenge, to give $50,000 to principals to think through ideas that will make their kids more ready for college and career when they graduate. Hassan's a former Edison student, valedictorian, went to UC Berkeley, got his education, then decided to come back and start a company that helps children with the most learning disabilities learn and do better in school. So Hassan and his former principal have teamed up to create a program that hopefully will boost achievement and attainment at Edison High School. And since the exciting announcement in January, several donors have reached out to support our efforts. Earlier this year, Wells Fargo gave $50,000 to the cause. The Duffy Family Foundation gave $25,000. And earlier this month, PG&E announced a $500 million contribution to support the scholarship program and another $500 million to support educational initiatives in the city. So give it up for them, please. Last night at the State of the City Eve, I announced that we were also able to get a gift from the Donham Foundation, a family foundation who's contributing $1.16 million over 5 years to create a new program called the Sherman Scholars. This program will go to any student in any school district, Manteca, Lodi, Stockton, or Lincoln, provided they get into a UC or any other top school. And that's very encouraging because the Donham Foundation is not based in Stockton. They don't do business in Stockton. They don't personally benefit from Stockton doing well. But yet they were so inspired by the commitment we're making to our children that they put $1.16 million in the pot. So thank you to them. And today, I'm excited to announce another exciting contribution, this time from a local source. We just got word that the Stockton Scholars Program will be receiving $1 million from the Alex and Faye Spanos family to support the program. And I know Lex, you're here to represent your family, so thank you all for your leadership and your contribution to Stockton's future. And this passion from education comes from two beliefs. One, that talent and intellect is universal, is evenly distributed. You can find it in South Stockton, you can find it in Down Avenue, you can find it in Brookside, but oftentimes resources, opportunities are not. And that the best way to improve this city is investing in our people, especially our young people, and giving them the tools needed to succeed. I'm proof positive of this fact. Again, literally 10 years ago, I was a senior at Franklin High School, trying to figure out how would I apply and afford college. Now, 10 years later, I was able to get 2 Stanford degrees, and now I'm back in Stockton working with you all to make our community better. But think about this. That's one person. Times that by the 40,000 kids in Stockton Unified School District and the 40,000 kids in our other school district. And that's something to rally around and get really, really excited about. And over the past several months, Councilmember Dan Wright has been doubling as the interim superintendent of Stockton Unified Schools. So Dan, while speaking about education, I want to take this second to say thank you. Being the council member is tough enough. Being somebody's superintendent is probably tougher. I'm not sure how you did both, but I thank you for your partnership and laying the groundwork for our new superintendent, Dr. Deasy. So thank you so much, Councilmember Wright. I also want to take a moment to say hello and welcome to our new superintendent, Dr. John Deasy, and congrats to the Stockton Unified School Board for unanimously selecting a new leader to lead our schools. I look forward to continuing our partnership and making sure that Stockton becomes a model for what kids in urban communities could do, provided they get the right resources, opportunities, and inputs. Because it's critically important that we increase our numbers of individuals with a degree. Studies show us that nearly 40% of jobs will require higher education in just 12 years. So for our current kindergartners, 40% of jobs waiting for them will require some sort of degree. And if we don't change course quickly, 12 years from now, 13 years from now, they'll be stuck in menial minimum wage jobs, and that's not what we want for our children or for our future. And that's why I'm not only interested in supporting kids and going to college, but doing everything we can to bring a CSU or a UC right here in Stockton. I'm so thankful for the leadership of Assembly Member Susan Aikman, and as we said in our joint op-ed, the time is long overdue for the state to build a new university, and it has to be. No question about it, it has to be right here in Stockton. She has a bill. Are you gonna clap for that? All right. She also is working on the bill, Assembly Bill 27771, that calls for $7 billion in university bonds. This bill will provide the funding for needed maintenance at our CSU and UCs and for construction of new campuses. And if passed, will be another game changer for our community. So in addition to investing in students and in scholarships, we are also doubling down on our efforts to provide our children with more pro-social activities. Thanks to you all, and with the passage of Measure M, we have been able to open Arnold Rue Micro Library. We've been able to provide more staff to support expanded library hours and recreation programs. We're planning to build a library and community center in North Stockton, and starting July 2nd, we're expanding hours, including evening hours, Saturday hours, and reopening community centers on Mondays. We have been closed on Mondays since 2009, so that's a big deal, and thank you, John Alita, and your staff for making that happen. We are also beginning plans for state-of-the-art aquatic facilities at Oak Park, McKinley Park, Victory Park, and we're working on building soccer pitches on vacant tennis courts. Finally, it's not just the city, it's not just the scholarships, but you all have been doing a lot of work to invest in young people. I am so pleased by the efforts of this community to establish a Boys and Girls Club in the Western Ranch area and back on the east side part of town. These efforts will bring back vital enrichment opportunities for our youth, and there's a long-term plan for a 20,000 plus square foot state-of-the-art facility. And I agree, our kids deserve nothing less than the best. So over the next several years, we still have to add to our support for young people and work on early inputs and interventions to make sure that kids enter school ready to take advantage of the Stockton Scholars Program, to make sure that we screen for adverse childhood experiences, to make sure we expand access to home visits and affordable childcare, preschool, and other supports to build a true pipeline that supports our residents from cradle to career. A community that rallies around its youth, rally around its present, and its future. And oftentimes, after we invest in students and they go to college, they head to Sacramento or the Bay Area for a career. And I know, because that was my plan. I never thought I was going to come back to Stockton. I thought I had to leave Stockton to get an education and get a job. And for the kids in our schools now, I want something different. I want them to understand that Stockton is not a city to flee from, but a city to be from and to come back to if you leave, because we'll have plenty of jobs and opportunities for them to use their considerable intellect if we make the right decisions and investments now. Just recently, the University of Pacific Center for Business and Policy Research estimated that our mega region has one of the lowest human capital rankings in the state, with neighboring regions like Greater Sacramento area had the 5th highest human capital index, and the Bay Area was ranked number 1. Stockton, we ranked 14th out of 15. So again, out of 15 mega regions in the state, Stockton was 14 out of 15, which is troubling enough. It becomes even more troubling when the Bay Area to our north, or not to our north, you know where the Bay Area is. The Bay Area, um, the Bay Area is number one, and Sacramento to our north is number five. In the labor market study, we heard that 62% of the occupations that are forecast to add the most employment in our region are those most likely to have wages near or below the level of a living wage. And we should not have to choose between the present and the future. While those jobs provide entry-level opportunities, we have to diversify our economy and bring new, better-paying jobs to our region. Merely maintaining the status quo is not an option. We must lead again with our investments in people. In Stockton, you guys have already been working to create career options for residents. The work of the San Joaquin Health Partnership has been important to surface opportunities in healthcare. With that foundation, I'm excited to announce a new company called Counsel is working with us to create a business process services center in Stockton that will provide operations and administrative services to health systems and health insurers. Counsel is a unique venture that will team up with our local colleges like Delta to create new certificate and for credit pathways into healthcare-related fields. And the exciting thing is this work does not happen in isolation. In the fall of 2017, my office, along with UOP and Valley Vision, convened 20 leaders from across the spectrum of education and workforce leadership to discuss the challenges and opportunities to equip our workforce for the future. Specifically, we have made commitments as organizations to join the Skills Task Force with a charge to learn from and experiment with best practices that have proven successful in other cities in this country. All of this is in service to putting Stockton on a transformative economic trajectory. I believe one significant opportunity for our city is to capitalize and upgrade on our existing infrastructure to pave the way for green economy jobs. San Joaquin RTD's leadership has challenged and pushed the limitations on what's possible. With CalStart's new office in Stockton, the sky is no longer the limit. With their support, we're excited to explore clean, efficient transportation across all modes: land, sea, air, and as we saw earlier, rail. We are also linking Stockton's story with the national narrative on economic opportunity and innovation-based growth. Furthermore, recently the council has hired a consultant to help us think through the right policies and procedures needed to capitalize on the cannabis industry. It is my vision in Stockton not to have a dispensary on every corner, but with our assets to serve as a hub for testing, for manufacturing, and distribution of this industry, which will bring jobs and revenue to our community. In February of this year, CityLab visited Stockton to better understand our community and provide an assessment and a set of recommendations on the ways that Stockton could grow an innovation economy and take advantage of entrepreneurship. One thing is clear: we have incredible assets from our downtown to our port, in our geography, our proximity to the Bay Area and Sacramento. So rather than losing residents across the Altamont every day, how do we begin the serious and difficult work of building an ecosystem that supports them right here at home? For more of their insights, this summer my office will be releasing the report in coordination with the community interested in taking action on this. I truly believe that Stockton could be a place where the future is built first. We talk about manufacturing, we talk about logistics, there's all type of innovations happening in those sectors. And why can't Stockton be the place where they test, try, prototype, and build ideas? And over the past several months, we've heard interest. So I hope to report over the next several State of the City addresses, new companies coming in who are helping lead and usher Stockton into the future. One place that's embracing the future is our downtown. Trail Coffee has recently opened their new doors downtown. Next week, the Medical Artist Loft by DFA Development officially breaks down in one of our city's most iconic buildings, the Medical Dental Tower. We have my friends from Cast Iron, where I get my kombucha every other day. It's a little bit expensive, but it's great. And we have entrepreneurs like my friends from China Brew, who are showing that you can invest in Stockton, you can be in Stockton, and that Stockton's a great place to do business, even in and especially in our downtown. So thank you both for joining me and for your leadership and spurring entrepreneurship in our city. This year, we've also done 3 million of square feet in industrial space near our airport. We've launched Kiva.org to help small businesses and entrepreneurs. But we have to also ensure that all this economic growth and development is evenly shared. The diversity of our workforce and our contracting should be reflective of the diversity of our city. According to the most recently available census data, minorities own 63% of businesses in Stockton, yet only account for 20% of gross business revenues in the city. Similarly, women-owned businesses comprise 40.7% of Stockton businesses, yet account for only 12% of business revenues. How can we now meet these businesses where they are and help ensure their best chances for success, whether they're working from their homes, from office spaces, or in the downtown? Finally, on the economic front, we're also going to take advantages of policies at the national level. Recently, the government has released a program called the Opportunity Zone Program, and we're working diligently to ensure that Stockton is first in line. So to that end, next month, I'm speaking at the Forbes 400 Philanthropy and Entrepreneurship Summit to make the case for Stockton to be the test case city, for why the Opportunity Zone Program could work in a community that doesn't just have opportunity, but has residents and entrepreneurs willing and able to roll up their sleeves. And while we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we position Stockton's economy for the future, there's many residents who are struggling with the economy in the here and now. As I'm speaking, I'm reminded of Louisa, a member of our community I recently met with. She's a school crossing guard and playground monitor working at one of our schools. She is a mother, and like many in our community, she is struggling to make ends meet. When asked what she would do with an additional $500 a month, she said it would put a little relief on stress. Louisa doesn't take the simple things for granted. Making minimum wage, she says she can't remember the last times she took her kids to the movies. And today, our community is filled with folks like Louisa, who are working harder and harder, only to fall further and further behind as rents and cost of living continues to rise while wages remain stagnant. Furthermore, because 52% of jobs in our community are minimum wage jobs, the median income for a household in our community is well below the state and national average, and is $46,000. These statistics and the amount of effort people in this community work make me unapologetic about the need to be bold about finding solutions to these issues. To that end, last year we launched the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration, the nation's first Monroe-led guaranteed income demonstration that will give a select number of Stockton families $500 a month starting next year. And I've been talking to luminaries like Sarah Palin and Chuck Woolery on Twitter. You guys know Chuck Woolery, right? The Love Connection guy? He tweeted me, and we had a conversation about this program. And he had concerns that I'm sure many of you have shared. His first concern was it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Well, like everything else, this program is philanthropically funded thanks to the Economic Security Project and the Goldage Foundation, who are providing $1.5 million for this effort. His second concern was that it rewards laziness and sloth. And I told him, well, actually, 60% of poor people work. The issue is that people are working hard and they can't pay for bills. The third thing he said was, why would you try this in a bankrupt city? And I gently reminded him that actually, we were bankrupt, but now we're like the second fiscally most healthy city in the state. And the idea behind this is not a new one. It's as old as the Republic itself. Thomas Paine wrote about this in the Agrarian Revolution. Dr. King, who we just celebrated not too long ago, called for this before he was assassinated. And I'm excited and I'm proud to launch this demonstration in Stockton for a couple of reasons. But the first and more important one is this. For once, the eyes of the nation are on Stockton, not to see the bad, not to see the crime, but to see the resourcefulness, the resilience, the tenacity, and the creativity of folks in our community. I've sat in focus group with mothers who have told me that $500 enough will be enough for them to enter back into the workforce or to pay for childcare. I've sat with students who told me that $500 a month will allow them to go to school full time and finish the degree in a more timely manner. I've heard from members of my own family about how $500 a month would help them save for a rainy day, because in this country, in this state, and in this city, 1 in 2 Americans, Californians, and Stocktonians can't afford one $500 emergency. So to that end, we've recruited a new director for this program, Lori Espina. We have a national research team helping to do the research, and we hope to begin disbursements of the $500 a month to Stockton residents, not your money, philanthropic money, starting early next year. And while we launch the program next year for 100 families, we still have to deal with the challenge and realities that many of our individuals in Stockton face, and that's of the cost of housing. It's amazing how we could go from the foreclosure capital of the world 6 years ago to now it's very hard to find anything vacant. To make matters worse, people commuting to the Bay Area has caused prices to rise up. And in last year, from our 211 county management system, the top 10 requests were all housing related. They were for rent assistance and down payment assistance and for getting rid of evictions and for finding affordable housing. Of all the things people called for last year to our 211 system, every single one of the top 10 was about how do I get a roof over my head? How do I afford housing? In fact, Rent Cafe listed Stockton as the city with the fastest rising rent for April 2017 and May 2017, which has fueled a growing housing burden for Stockton. I just found out this week that for almost half of our city would be considered rent poor or excessively housing cost burden because they spend more than 30% of their paychecks every month on rent. And this epidemic of sorts has caused us to create a task force on workforce and affordable housing. Working with industry stakeholders and with the support of McKinsey Global Institute, we're going to be looking at addressing the causes of the housing shortage, and will recommend policies to encourage the sustainable development of housing that is accessible for our residents whom have a median household income, again, of $46,000. And while we wait for the task force to do its job, we're still working. This last fiscal year, we allocated $7.6 million in federal funds toward affordable housing programs and projects, emergency housing in our shelters. This included $1.6 million in federal and low-income housing funds to fund affordable housing projects, including one for permanent housing for the homeless. We even took a great program that reduced barriers to housing development in downtown and extended it citywide for affordable housing projects. And of course, we worked with the providers of existing voucher programs like the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program and the Housing Choice Voucher Program to develop a housing mitigation fund that will give landlords peace of mind and encourage them to accept vouchers and rent to veterans and families on the verge of homelessness. Over the course of 2017, your mayor, your council held a joint city-county meeting on homelessness, adopted Housing First principles, and developed many initiatives to address homelessness. We allocated $100,000 to homeless cleanup efforts. In January of this year, Supervisor Miller, myself, and HUD Administrator Jimmy Strackner announced a $4.4 million award to Stockton and San Joaquin County to pay for permanent supportive housing, to pay for rapid rehousing, to pay for housing for foster youth, to pay for a database to coordinate homeless efforts, and $129,000 to pay for a newly created homelessness administrator position, or as I love to call it, the homelessness czar position. And that's not it. In February, the council approved loans for affordable housing activities, including $300,000 to STAND and the Housing Authority to fund permanent supportive housing for the homeless, as well as general fund dollars to help the homeless program administrator. So I'm so excited, Adam, if you're here, for your work and leadership, your mayor, your council. We look forward to working with you in the county to really creating a strategy about how do we eliminate veteran chronic homelessness in our community and how to reduce the number of chronically homeless individuals of the city. It won't be easy. It'll take a lot of work. It'll take a lot of effort, but given the calls, letters, emails, texts, Facebooks, Instagrams, Twitters I receive from folks about the homelessness issue, I'm sure, Adam, our community is ready to rise to the challenge. But California is in the midst of a housing crisis, so it's not going to be enough just to wait for Adam and the county and the city to coordinate around any chronic homelessness. So to that end, over the next several months, this council will have to debate several proposals. This council will have to look at the Stockton Economic Stimulus Plan and figure out whether and when we'll extend it and what enhancements need to be made, whether it's with raising necessary permit caps or extending the sunset to signal to the market that we want folks to build. This council may have to look at and debate a just cause eviction ordinance to secure the rights of tenants who are doing all they can to stay housed. And this council may also have to debate and figure out how do we create a housing trust fund to help affordable and workforce housing pencil out. Furthermore, this summer, this council will vote on a general plan that promises to be progressive, infield focused, and about growing Stockton the right way for our future. So as I draw to my close, there's a phrase that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to go together. And as I've outlined, we do have many challenges in our community today. One that has become a powder keg of energy and effort and conversation has been one the city has been discussing since 2010. And that's what to do with our 2 city-owned municipal golf courses. On one hand, it was inspiring and great to see the community care so passionately about an issue. Yet on the other hand, I had to ask myself, what else could we accomplish if we had the same passion, energy, organization, and vigor around the myriad of other challenges that our community faces? On this stage last year, I said I wanted to end the city's subsidy for golf. And most of you guys know how the story goes by now. Again, since 2010, the city has struggled with solutions for the increasing subsidy for golf courses, while cutting things like police and fire and staff and library hours. I would say that in this instance, we probably moved a little bit too quickly to get things done, but it's because, frankly, I didn't think the city could afford another decade of kicking the can down the road and not engaging in a tough conversation. It was a valuable lesson for myself, for city staff, for my staff. And again, last summer, just to set the record straight for the last time, we instructed the city manager to come back for options. The entire council did, not just Zara Tubbs. The entire council instructed the city manager to come back to us with options for eliminating the golf subsidy. What could we do? On December 4th, we had a meeting to discuss the options that were presented, and we heard pretty clearly from the community that those options weren't acceptable. What was lost in that meeting is that at that time, again, the council said, okay, city manager, could you help us come up with other options? So I'll be the first to admit, maybe the rollout was a little bit rushed. We probably could communicate that thing better. But again, in a city with so many issues, we have to be able to discuss hard things while being truthful about facts and while remaining civil. And I get it. Given previous experiences with city government, it makes sense why people were distrustful and thought some backroom deal had been bought and thought that me and Oprah had conspired to take over the golf course. Literally, I got that message 3 times a couple months ago. So shortly thereafter that meeting, and I thank you so much for your leadership on this issue, Councilmember Loftus. Councilmember Loftus approached me and said, Mayor, we have to do something. My district, my folks are upset. I'm not here to point fingers. Let's come up with a solution. So we had a town hall, like many town halls we have in Stockton, a little bit rambunctious and a lot of fun. And through the yelling and name calling and misinformation, we were listening. And what we heard was that there was a community hungry not just for a solution, but to be part of that solution. So to that end, a month later, we established the Mayor's Task Force on Golf. And we spent 2 months with community members thinking through what's a viable solution for Swenson Golf Course first, while not neglecting Van Busker Golf Course as well. And to that end, this week we announced the city is putting out the golf course for an RFP, also known as a request for proposals. To make it very clear, once and for all, this is what an RFP is, this is what the RFP does, and this is why the RFP is a good idea. Number one, the RFP is a good idea because it signals the city is committed to keeping Swenson open as a golf course, provided someone else operates it. Number two, it signals we're working to find a private operator so that no taxpayer dollars are used. Number three, it's an open and transparent process where there'll be a committee of non-council members looking at applications that would then go to the council for a public vote at a public council meeting that happens on the very public Tuesday at 5:30 twice a month. Number four, the RFP as a condition will now allow housing for Swenson. And number five, decisions made about this golf course won't be based on a political objective, but only on what is fair and equitable for the city. And through this request for proposals, we're hoping to find a group that honors the place Swenson has in our community, that understands the passion and the love for it, and that can make it pencil out without city subsidy. Y'all better clap for that. Half of y'all were emailing me about this. But again, we're talking about not one golf course, but two. So our plan for Van Busker will go through a similar process where we'll meet with community, we'll spend time in engagement, we won't rush rollout, and hopefully by this time next year, we have viable solutions for both of our city's golf courses, because in Stockton, we care about both Swenson and Van Busker. So 18 months after our swearing in, given the length of this speech, I'm sure you can tell we're making good on our promise to reinvent Stockton. We are leading with values, we're leading with ideas, we're leading with thinking and preparing for the future while adhering to the lessons we've learned in the past. 18 months from my swearing in, however, we still have real challenges to address, but I am resolute in my belief, Stockton, that there is nothing we can't tackle, provided we do it together. In Stockton, our strength lies in our diversity and in embodying the creed of our nation, that out of many, one. And the only way we can move Stockton forward is to cheer for, fight for, and care about every part of this community as our own. If there's an immigrant in Stockton who feels unsafe, I care, even if I'm not an immigrant or anyone in my family. If there's a homeless individual that's struggling with mental illness or drug use, or simply because they can't pay rent, as a Stocktonian, I care, even if I'm not homeless. If there's a kid in Kentville going to bed listening to gunshots, as a Stocktonian, I care, even if it's not my kid, even if it's not my neighborhood. If there's an elderly person in Parkwoods who's struggling with medical costs, as a Stocktonian, I care, even if it's not my grandmother, even if I don't live in Parkwood. If there's a single mother struggling to provide for her family, as a Stocktonian, I care, even if it's not my mother or my sister or my daughter. If there's an ex-offender coming back to our community who's looking for a job and can't find employment, as a Stocktonian, I should care, even if I don't have a record, even if I don't have felonies. If there's a student in our high schools or elementary schools that isn't reading at grade level, as a Stocktonian, I care, even if my kids go to Stanford, even if I don't have kids, even if my kids don't go to that school. Out of many, one Stockton moving in one direction, and that direction is forward. Because there's been times in our community when we didn't believe that. The idea that out of many was one city. Vice Mayor Holman tells a story about growing up, how he wasn't allowed north of Main Street. Most recently, there's vandalism at the Little Manila Center here in Stockton. And in talking with Dylan Delville, executive director, I learned that in the 1930s, that center was actually bombed for having too many Filipino people in it. It's important, Stockton, that we learn from our history and model better behavior for the next generation. If we are really honest with ourselves. We can respect and resolve to work on the fact that some of these deeply rooted issues of sexism or xenophobia or homophobia or racism have not completely faded away. That we don't always believe or behave as a community in a way that reflects our belief in unity or in the fact that out of many of us comes one beautiful community. And in that, Stockton isn't unique. Like many communities across America, we face challenges around race and class and gender and sexual orientation. But to heal, we have to share in this dialogue. And at times, it appears that we all love Stockton, but we don't all love all Stocktonians. At times, it appears that we love Stockton, but don't love all the people that make the city what it is. Because the city is in the mayor, it is in the building, it is in the police department. It's you and me as citizens. We are nothing more and nothing less than the people who call our city home. And I was recently reminded of this challenge in a series of letters I received from a high school government class about the golf course. Many of the letters were troubling, but one in particular highlights why I'm giving this speech today. The student at first said that I, as a mayor, was selfless. So I was like, oh wow, it's gonna be a good one. But then I realized it was a typo. The next line went on to say, why would you want North Stockton, which is more nice, to become ghetto and bad? Low-income people around nice areas, sooner or later, that area will become ghetto and ugly too. And now we could chalk these comments up to someone that doesn't know better or that they're not reflective of our community writ large. But this letter is just one of dozens I've received via Facebook or emails or voicemails. Some that have called me the N-word, some that have called me a monkey, some that have called me a black savage or a thug, some that have made derogatory comments about Muslims and Latinos, some that have badmouthed and put down some parts of the city we all love and sharing. Luckily, this ignorance and bigotry is not the norm, but it's one of the things we cannot allow us to hold us back. And at times, it feels like we could be a city separated, but as the city's first black mayor, I would do a huge disservice to us all if I didn't go head on into these issues. So I want to be very I want to be very, very clear. To quote Dr. King, in Stockton, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Out of many, one. That's what I mean. That's what we mean when we say reinvent Stockton. And at another school, I received another letter that gave me hope for the young people and for our future. A fourth grader wrote, on the news, you always see something bad. It's never about a good day someone had. We always see people getting bullied and hurt, and more people sleeping in the dirt. There are other people out there who have it worse than you. Just put yourself in their shoes too. One act of kindness is all it takes. In Stockton, as a city with a challenging past and a promising future, the one thing I know is that regardless of our differences, we can come together to build a better tomorrow. The Christian Science Monitor actually wrote an article about Stockton and about our diversity. And it talked about Farmers Feed Co. and the owner, Mike Fleming. His family has owned this business since 1941, and it's been a staple in our community. He talks about how some of his customers have problems speaking English. And he says, when they see me, I'm a white guy, actually speaking Spanish, they see me kind of vulnerable and putting myself out there for them. It makes them feel comfortable, and that's what I like. The article goes on to say, Stockton provides a snapshot of an increasingly rare reality in 2017 America. What happens with people with a broad range of histories, ethnicities, and ideologies rely on one another within the same community. This is the Stockton I know. This is the Stockton we have to be, and this is the Stockton that I know we can build. I want Stockton to continue to be a city that grows people, like this year's Key to the City recipient. This young man grew up on Spring Street and has lived in Stockton all his life and is a proud graduate of Edison High School. He was a track star and transitioned to working in law enforcement and ended up having a very distinguished career, serving 20 years with the Sheriff's Department and 14 years with the District Attorney's Office, serving his last 5 as the first African-American chief investigator in the state. After that, he decided to continue his service, and thankful for his wife, in addition to being the elder at his church, and applied to be on the city council. He has served the council well for 10 years, helping us exit bankruptcy and helping position us to where we sit today. Vice Mayor Holman has been an inspiration, a mentor, a friend, and represents all that is good about the city of Stockton. Please join me in celebrating Vice Mayor Holman and his wife. Stockton, we are a city that raises leaders like Elbert Holman. We are a city that can do whatever we want, provided we set our collective will towards and provided we are united. And I believe that Stockton can be and will be a blueprint for America. We can demonstrate how a city with such diversity could face issues of poverty, affordability, education, and public safety, how to get one Stockton out of many. To get there, we have to set aside our differences, petty divisive issues, and preconceived notions of each other so that we can come together and build upon the opportunity we have before us. Last year, my challenge was to look at each other and say, why not Stockton? This year, my challenge is to look inward and ask, can we show this country that we are one city, diverse, battle-tested, and ready to work hard to provide our children with a better future, to attract industry, to grow the jobs of the future, with the opportunity we have today. Today, I challenge us to move forward together, to reject the notion that better is not possible, to reject the notion that we're not one community with many faces, to reject the notion that we can't reinvent Stockton. Stockton, our time is now. It's an absolute honor to be your mayor. The state of our city is stronger and will continue to get stronger as we get closer together. Thank you. God bless Stockton, God bless you all, and God bless America.